Kids, today back to talk about 23andMe and my experience with it. That's going to be the only subject today. It's just going to be a 23andMe update. I'm sure these are going to be kind of semi-regular for a while. Um, if you missed the last video, I did 23andMe. Uh, I got the results on Sunday. Within 2 hours of getting the email, I was actually in contact with my biological sister, and then a couple hours later, my biological dad, and then we figured out who my biological mom was, and with the help of my biological sister, I got a hold of my biological mom, and then my biological brother yesterday. So I've got this whole new family, and I also talked to my biological aunt on my dad's side. So lots of family members. I went from zero family to lots of family because I don't know if many of you might not know this, but my entire adopted family died many, many years ago. So I've been without a family for a very long time. And um, I'm getting Family 2.0, the reboot, and it is so wonderful. And it's so neat to have the just the concept of biofamily I thought I would never ever know. And if you go through this, if you're an adopted child and you go through this process, prepare yourself for a lot. Be very self aware before you go in. Because if you're not sure and you're not bold, nothing's going to happen. You've got to not only get in there, but you've got to reach out and you've got to want to make contact and you've got to take all the chances and you've got to face possible rejection and you have to face possible disappointment. In my case, so far, I've been exceptionally lucky and had both my bio father family and my bio mom's family very warm and excited and thrilled to add to their families. But it does cause internal issues. It causes internal issues within families. Um, I have two sisters, and I never had sisters before. In my adopted family, I only had a little brother. Now I have a little brother, a new little brother. He's my bio brother, and it's so much different than having another adopted, living with another adopted child. We had nothing in common, looked nothing alike. Um, in my adopted family, because my little brother was adopted too, but with my bio brother, it's like we were raised together and we weren't. It's so weird, and to see my mom, it's like me with a wig. Um, my mom's face is a lot like mine, and my dad's too. I've got my dad's eyes and his crooked smile and his chin, and um, listening to him talk, we have so much in common, and it was like I was never once removed. So that old adage that the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree is so true. You have no idea. And even though I do have some characteristics of my adopted parents, obviously, also, um, I have so many natural characteristics from both my mom and my dad. And my sister, my sisters and brother, and I share a lot of characteristics together as well. So it's freaky. And frankly, it's like stepping into the twilight zone at first, and in a good way, because you it's kind of indescribable. I'm trying to make a video to describe the indescribable, but um, it's so refreshing. And you have to be, if you're an adopted child too, and particularly if you had as tough a time as I did with an adopted family that was less than stellar, um, you have to be able to let go of, you have to realize that you have a lot of baggage and you have to let that all go. And in my case, since my whole adopted family is dead, I need to stop identifying as an adopted child because I'm no longer an adopted child. There's no one alive that paid for me or or any part of that family. So I need to stop identifying as an adopted child and start identifying as a bio child and take all that negativity and that all those things that weren't working for me and change them into something new and make family 2.0 bio family work for me in a positive way. um, and so far it is, and you have to be conscious of that, and you can't let old demons slip back in and poison your mind. um, I had to fight particularly hard um, before I talked to my little brother, my bio brother. Um, I had lots of garbage from my adopted brother. Was also a little brother, and I had garbage, social garbage, that of certain types of people that I had run across in life that were negative experiences and all these different things, and I had to get rid of all of that because it wouldn't be fair to him if I had brought all that to the table and thrown it on his, basically thrown it on his desk and told him to fix it because it wasn't his to fix, it was mine to fix. And I worked really hard before we even got a chance to speak to make sure that I was open and ready for um, the wonderful experience it was to talk with him. And it's amazing how it's awkward. Um, it was awkward for both of us. It's awkward for my sister and I at first, awkward for my dad and I, awkward for my mom. Not so awkward. She'd been waiting for this. She'd been wanting this for a very long time. Um, so she was the only one where things weren't quite awkward. She's kind of was like, TikTok, where have you been? Um, Strangely, and that was kind of cute and fun. Um, because she's been praying for me to come back ever since she had to let me go, and um, I found her and I'm back. So I highly recommend it. It's deeply, deeply emotional, and it's exhausting. You wouldn't think of it as being exhausting, you'd think of it as being exhilarating. But when you're totally exhilarated constantly and you keep pumping all that adrenaline in your body, it becomes exhausted. So I can tell you, if you're an adopted child and you're going to go through this, be prepared to give yourself time to sleep because you're going to pass out every single night just in absolute exhaustion. And you're going to sleep well, but only for about 5 hours. Um, and then you're going to be right back up again. And for me, every morning has been weepy, really, really weepy. Um, just processing all the emotion and all the um, change and all the new love, because you have to give out. If you want love, you have to give out love, and you need to give it out, in my estimation, the way I do it. You need to give that out unconditionally, and don't put any strings attached. um, that's my best advice, because A, you'll never get your feelings hurt that way, and B, who doesn't love unconditional love? It's unconditional. and it's love. It's a beautiful thing. And it's pure. So it helps the bond. It helps, because in my case, I'm 52 years old. I spent 52 years of my life without these people. And my little brothers and sisters aren't little kids, they're in their 40s. So it's not like they're children or toddlers or anything like that. These are 40-year-old adults with their own kids and in some cases grandkids. And um, you have to be able to cope with that as an adult. I mean, they're adults with their own families and their own lives, and suddenly you're jumping up into their world and you're saying, "Hi, oh, by the way, I'm your brother." And it's shocking for them because it takes things out, it knocks everything out of place. In my little brother's case, he was an only child, but he wasn't because I was always there. He just didn't know it. And I didn't know it. So I immediately now become big brother and he becomes little brother, something he's not used to. I'm used to being the oldest because I was the oldest in my adopted family. So I'm used to being big brother. That's a role I'm comfortable with. And I know how to be there for my brother and be there unconditionally. And so it's easy to get that relationship started. Now, I've never had sisters before, so this is a whole new experience for me. And I have two younger sisters. They're younger than me. Now, the older of the two sisters, who's now the middle child, she's used to being the oldest, and now she's a middle child. And that's going to take some adjustment for her because she's no longer going to be the oldest, period, full stop. She can't be because I'm older. So it's going to change the whole dynamic of how the two sisters behave with each other, and then how they're going to incorporate me into their lives, and how they're going to incorporate each other into their lives. And I've watched this dynamic bloom over less than a week. My two sisters had to have this moment of, okay, they had to have a moment of separation and then recohesion after I popped in just unannounced. And they also had challenges with my bio father and his wife, my stepmom, because their family has now been interrupted. And why weren't they told about this earlier if someone knew? If someone knew. And challenging the fact that whether they did know or they didn't know and all this kind of stuff went on, and it was upheaval in the family dynamic, but in the end, it brought everyone closer so far, and it's when the upheaval started, like about a day into this, I felt like, oh my God, what have I done? Did I just, come ramming through the door like a typical Aries with and just knock down like a bull in a china shop, just knock everything down without regard to anyone's feelings, or is this some sort of process that's natural? And as an adopted child with no family, I didn't know. So it's better. I just had to sit there and be present and allow it to happen and not try to force anything on them or force my will to say, well, you just accept it the way it is and be okay with it. I had to like really step back and let the process work itself out. And if you're the adopted child that's now coming and people say they didn't know, remember that's not your fault. And it's also not your issue because you probably didn't ask to be adopted. In my case, I was adopted from birth. So I didn't have a choice. It wasn't like I was adopted out of foster care. And it wasn't like I was stuck in foster care at 9 years old by a family that rejected me and then got adopted at like, 14 or something like that, and then went back looking for my bio family. I had no idea of these people. I didn't even know they existed still. I didn't know if my parents would be alive. And they're both alive. So it's amazing. And I recommend it. And when 23andMe or Ancestry or whoever you use ask you if you want to share your DNA information out in the mainstream, um, so you can find relatives, unless there's a really compelling reason, take the risk and do it. Go for it. You never know what you're going to find, and it can be wonderful. I heard all these awful stories my whole life about adopted children having nightmare reunions with their bio families, and I never had a desire to find my bio family. All I wanted to know is where my family medical history because of my chronic medical conditions, and wanted to know if there was anything else I needed to expect. And that's all I cared about. And now I have a whole family to love that has the chance to love me back. And we'll see how that works out. But if I never took in the risk, I never got the reward. So um, allow yourself time to cry. You're going to want to cry. Even if you're a man, you're going to want to cry. It's a lot of tears. And it's a lot of emotion. And I know a lot of men, particularly in the United States, in this country, um, are socialized to stuff emotions and not deal with emotions and not have emotions other than anger. Um, it's not anger. It's so much more than that. So as a man, I can tell you, you need to be open to processing your emotions. And men, I know for a fact, being one, are extremely emotional creatures, but we're just socialized not to be. We're socialized to ignore that because if we're allowed to be too emotional, we become absolutely fucking useless. Because we'd just be sitting there babbling idiots all the time, crying. Men can be very emotional creatures. They are by nature. And actually, they socialize women to be very emotional, and usually they're less emotional and more practical, but they're socialized hard to be super emotional. So they take the actual, I mean, in my estimation, from what I've seen of real life, they take the app, they socialize the genders absolutely opposite of their natures, and put them in roles that make society function, that makes men not completely useless and makes women uh, not completely dominant, um, and and trying to make men obsolete. So that's how society works to try to balance that out. And just for guys, just remember that. And for ladies, also remember that. Don't let yourself get carried away to the point where you become dysfunctional going through the process, because it hits you on every level and it challenges everything that you've set up as your self-actualization. It'll dwell up a childhood baggage that you thought you had long buried, or you had been carrying on your back so long you thought it was actually part of your back. Um, it 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 shakes you to your core and makes you reinvent yourself. Take a new picture. It's exactly like taking a new picture of yourself. So you get rid of that picture that's 10, 20 years old, that because you've been lazy and haven't kept up with taking new pictures of yourself, and you get to take a brand new picture. And you can make that picture anything you want it to be. It can be happy, it can be positive, it can be sad, it can be miserable, it can be dreadful, it can be whatever you want it to be, but you have that choice. And meeting BioFamily, it's like Reset Family 2.0. And you're going to be amazed how much in common you have, and the experience of looking back at someone that looks like you and thinks like you and acts like you and has the same expressions that you do is um, totally amazing and not to be missed. And pull yourself together and enjoy it. Don't let it completely overwhelm you. Make sure you get some rest. And make sure you give yourself that time to be weepy and cry and process and quiet. That 4 a.m., 5 a.m. cup of coffee just by yourself. No children, no spouses, no anybody. Just you and the coffee and maybe some music and your tears is the best way to cope with that. And just let it happen. Just let it all out. And work on getting rid of all that negative, those negative garbage and baggage that you have. And be fresh and ready for the new love that you can receive from your new family. So that's what I wanted to say today. Hope you're enjoying your week, and I will update you on how this process goes as it develops. Talk to you later.